Morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Weekly Spark. This one's a little bit different because I actually have some experimenting that I want to do. I love doing image transfers, whether it be from a laser printer or a Xerox copy. But recently I've been doing some research and there are some methods that I want to try, both for different effects, but also with magazine images. So this is purely experimental, and I've set up the spread in my small sketchbook to be kind of a side-by-side comparison. So this video will be in two parts because, of course, this stuff has to dry before you can do stage 2 of the transfer. So let me turn the camera around and I'll show you my images and kind of my setup. Okay, I have 4 zones set out on the paper, and I'm actually going to talk you through them backwards. This last section is going to be using acetone. I do know that this works, but I haven't done it in a while, and I want to reassess if how the odor is, since acetone has such a strong smell, if it saturates this kind of cardstock paper too much that it, bleeds through on the back. So I know this one's going to work. It gets a small column, but I wanted to revisit and see the pros and cons of the acetone. Now, my normal favorite is gel medium, and I know that works really well with all kinds of Xerox and laser print, but I also want to try it with a magazine image, since I don't do a lot of transfers with magazine images. I see so many people that use them to do amazing things on a jelly plate, but I wanted to try this. The neighbor on this page will be gesso, just plain white gesso, and then this large area is going to be clear gesso. So in each of the segments, I want to try and do magazine and printout, so that I can compare them and test it all at once. So although it's 4 quadrants across the spread, it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and then the final 7th one at the end. What I'm going to do, I will talk you through this now and then speed up the process, is I'm simply going to lay a good coat of the medium, whether it be gel, gesso, or clear gesso, lay that down, put the image face down where I want it to be. So these will be side by side, and burnish really well. I want there to be no air bubbles or no pockets where the image is not contacting the paper surface, because then it wouldn't transfer. So you're going to see me do that for these 3 stages, and then I'll pop back on to close out part 1. So stay tuned. Having trouble getting this to even stick, so I'm going to pop a little bit more gel medium down in that spot, and hopefully this transfer still has a chance. Okay, these we're going to let sit and dry at least 12 hours, maybe overnight, and then we'll get some water and we'll do that kind of, rubbing, erosion of the paper. So stay tuned and keep your fingers crossed. I am back 24 hours later to see how these things transfer. I'm just gonna dive right in. I have clean paintbrush water, and so I'm going to use that and just kind of wet the surface, you can see the paper gets a little transparent as it gets wet. I also have a spray bottle handy, and I just put the paper towels down between the pages of the book to soak up any moisture as I'm splashing things around. The paper usually, that's where they overlapped, so don't be alarmed, usually comes off in layers. And so this first layer often comes off in these large rolls. And that doesn't give me clear image yet. It's cloudy. There's still a haze of paper on it. But I can already see that this model's arm has transferred, and so that is surprising because I don't really ever use magazine transfers on things, and so, I mean, that's nice. Rub a little harder, try and get some of that off. Rubbing too hard, I'm going to rub away the image, which can be great if you want something to look distressed. Like there, you can see that's maybe starting to come off there. So the magazine image is coming off, but it's interesting because here where you can see that the first layer of paper is gone, this gray residue that I'm trying to get off to get the background color of the photo exposed, it dissolves differently. It almost feels like ashes and water. It's very different than, like, copy paper. It doesn't feel as fibery. It feels not really slimy, but I mean, clearly it's made out of different stuff, since magazine paper is inexpensive, since magazines aren't meant to, live forever. But it's like white, almost like clay. That's interesting. I wonder if there is clay in the paper as a binder, or I don't know. So this side right here is the gesso side, and although it works, it's not as clear. The more I rub, I am starting to get some places you can see where the image is gone. The laser print down here on the gesso seems to work fine. We'll know when it dries if I have all the paper fuzz off of it. But you can see as I'm trying to get that last layer of paper fuzz off this black area, it's just taking the image off as well. The magazine and gel medium is a pleasant surprise, and it is a lot more clear and almost a little bit glossy. It's a much more satisfying transfer than I expected. So of those two, I would definitely call Magazine Image and Gel Medium a win. So this third segment over here is the clear gesso. And I'll be honest, I'm very skeptical. I had a lot of trouble getting these images to even stick down. The clear gesso I have is very gritty. It has a lot of tooth. And so I'm not expecting much. Yeah, you could see that just peeled a whole leaf off of my crocus flower. And there goes the top of the flower. Yep, it's just all coming off. And I'm not rubbing any harder than I did on the other two. Perhaps there's a way to make it work, but I don't know. I'm not satisfied with that. And this is really weird. There's an excellent spot here with part of her face, and then the rest of it just completely peeled off like that with nothing remaining on the paper. Yeah, I'm going to just stop because I'm probably not going to do anything to this page and just leave it as this experiment. Yeah, that's weird. Okay, you can see on this first butterfly this haze here on the body, and that's definitely where there is still a bit of paper fuzz. So you can go back in and try and remove a little bit more of that. When I was first taught this method, we were taught to go over that with Mop and Glow floor cleaner, because that would make the paper fuzz not dissolve, but it would soak into the paper fuzz and make it go really clear and see-through. I don't have a bottle of Mop and Glow. I know there are people who use like a clear spray, but I don't use a lot of sprays because of ventilation and things like that in the studio. So I'll let those dry a little bit more, and then we'll see if maybe a coat of just clear gloss medium would do the same trick. Okay, this was from a folder of extra images that I have. She's very wintry. I don't remember if she is a Xerox from my local copy center or a laser printer from my printer. In theory, they should both be the same in that they're not water-based inks. And I don't have any straight acetone like from the paint department. I just have nail polish remover that does have acetone in it. I need to do my nails anyway, so let's go. I should just tack this down for security with a little bit of tape first. And face down, as you saw. And going through the back of the image, I'm going to grab my burnishing tool. You could use the back of a spoon. And we'll lift up and see if it works. All right, you can see the transfer starting. Yeah, this probably doesn't have a high enough concentration of acetone because it's just not working. What I normally do in this case is you can use wintergreen oil, and so let me show you that one right quick. And again, this won't be a very interesting image. I'm just going to do the bottom down here where I did not put any acetone. And I always put the lid back on the oil right away. I know it is evaporating and I would like to work quickly, but I would also not like to have to exit the studio for like 3 days while the aroma of spilled wintergreen oil gradually recedes. So this gives you a pretty clear transfer. This area where her hand was a lot of folds and a lot of drapery. So it was not high contrast, but I can clearly see her wristband and her hand and even start to see some of the lines in some of the folds. So going over it one more time gives me even a little more clarity with that drapery. So yeah. So there is my comparison of a couple different transfer techniques. I fall back on my reliable wintergreen oil and the always satisfying gel medium. I'm pleasantly surprised by the magazine gel medium combo. The gesso could have potential. The clear gesso was completely a letdown. So hopefully that gives you some info as you're trying your transfers. This one still has a little fuzz on it. It's still a little damp. Let me pop just a little bit of gloss on that right now and see what happens. So this is gloss medium. It is not the gel. It is just the really liquidy one. So my gloss has gotten pretty thick. It's very old and it didn't want to pour out. I'll just coat half of that, see what happens. Okay. So it looks great right now. Yes, it's wet. So hopefully it will keep that same kind of clarity on top of the transfer once it's dry. A transfer with some paper fuzz on it also can be fun to go back into with some water-soluble colored medium. I mean, that paper fuzz would soak up watercolor. So definitely different things to play with, and hopefully that sparked some things that you want to try. As always, subscribe, like the video, you know the drill, and I will see you next week for another Weekly Spark. Have a good one.